We are talking SignalR. I'm still John Galloway. This is Brady Gaster over here. We just finished the introduction. No. Oh. So anyhow, we just finished the introduction talking about core concepts, talking about what SignalR is, how it's hooked up. And for anyone that was worried about, hey, you're going too fast, that's part of the thing with the intro session is we cover a lot of ground, and then through the rest of the sessions we'll dig in deeper. Mm-hmm. So don't worry about that. The code is published, so there'll be a link on the course with the download, and then also in the chat I've also passed that out for people that are following live. Mm-hmm. And slides, everything will be available for download. So in this session we're going to be talking about SignalR on the web.
Which is your favorite topic?
I sure love it.
Yeah. Awesome. All right.
You want to talk this one?
Yeah, I can totally take this one. So let's say you have VS 2013 and the greatest IDE ever unleashed on the world, and you want to get started with a brand new web application, and you want to do some SignalR. The nice thing is, with all the new ASP.NET templates in Visual Studio 2013, you actually get the SignalR template out of the gate. You may have seen earlier I did file new or add new file, and when I did a search for SignalR up in the search box in the file new item dialog, and it actually shows me a SignalR hub, and I believe it also shows me a SignalR connection class. So I do want to point out that if you're using Visual Studio 2013, you'll actually get the SignalR hub and connection templates right in there for you. If you're upgrading an existing ASP.NET app from VS 2012 or earlier, or you've written it by hand or something, you're not going to have those templates in there. So you're going to have to kind of go through the process, kind of like what I did earlier with the empty web. You'll have to actually install the NuGet before you do everything else. Mm-hmm. So these last three steps that you see here, the Owen startup class, the HTML, and creating your hub, you always have to do those. Even when you have a brand new VS 2013 project, you'll still have to manually do that work. This first step is really only if you have an older project that you're upgrading or that you want to add SignalR to. So you just have to install the package, and that's pretty simple. If you want to get everything all at once, you would just do install package or use the GUI inside of VS. You would use the Microsoft.ASP.NET ASP.NET, SignalR package. And if you really only need the client functionality, like you only need the JavaScript, you would just append that with .js, and you would get only the JavaScript files necessary. And if your project doesn't already have jQuery, it'll pull it down and install it. So that's just kind of how you would get up and running if you wanted to do this from scratch. So I do want to point that out. Here's kind of the steps that we walked through earlier. I think John's got a demo to walk through this, but if not, we could skip over this. But obviously the first thing you're going to need to do is to wire it up with your Owen startup class. And inside of there, you would just call the map SignalR method. And that, like I said earlier, is sort of like setting up your MVC and Web API routes. This basically just tells the server, here's how you get to my SignalR hubs. And then that dynamic JavaScript that I showed earlier that has all the proxy that goes back to the hubs, that's what that map SignalR will do. It'll actually give us that endpoint that we could hit to get all the dynamic JavaScript. So that's the first step. Second step is going to be, you're going to have to include the JavaScript file. So you have to include the jQuery file, and then you'll have to include the jQuery SignalR file. And it probably goes without saying, but I do want to stress this. The order is important. The SignalR jQuery file is little more than a jQuery plugin that just adds the SignalR functionality. So in order to get that plugin working, you have to lay down jQuery first. So I do want to point out that you want to import your jQuery JavaScript, then you want to import your jQuery.SignalR JavaScript. So I just want to stress that. Then you would go ahead and you would create a pretty simple hub. This is us creating a simple hub that'll just say hello world. And again, to create a hub, all you need to do is to inherit from the Microsoft.ASP.NET there we go again, ASP.net.SignalR namespace. You just have to inherit from hub. And then you just have to party on the client's object. Or if you want to override connected and disconnected, you could do that. But at this point, you've seen us kind of use this. You'll see us use it quite a bit more. Using a hub should pretty much become automatic by the end of the day. And then after you've got your hub created and you've referenced jQuery and the SignalR extension, then you would actually write all your custom JavaScript to handle all your hub events, invoke methods on your hub, and all that good stuff. So this is actually what you would end up doing if you wanted to kind of get going from start to finish. Well, we've shown that quite a bit in our demos. We'll be showing it more. But I wanted to kind of put this very simple walkthrough directly into the deck, because we're going to give you these decks to download after the class is over. So I want to make sure that you have all this reference material later on so you can get started yourself. Without further ado, though, I want to let John kind of show you this in a demo, just kind of walk through the process itself.
Great.
If you want to do that.
Sure. Okay. So here what I'm doing is, normally, as Brady showed earlier, I think you showed, I forget, we'll show this more later.
That's fine.
Visual Studio 2013, if you just do File New Project and do a web application, it's already going to have SignalR already pre-configured for you. So in order to do this demo, I'm actually needing to go and select the, oops, did that wrong, the Visual Studio 2012 and templates, and that'll allow me to go back a version, right? So here I'm going to go in, select Visual Studio 2012, and I'll create an MVC4 application. And I just want to show you, this is an example for if you already have an existing web application. So say I did this last year, I created an MVC4 application, and I've been developing on it for the past several months, and now it's time for me to I say, wow, I wish I had installed SignalR on this. We'll show you the process. Again, as Brady said, it's as simple as just installing those NuGet packages. And this is great kind of setup also for later, remembering that SignalR works great on the client. And so that means that you can go into a console application, whatever it is, a WPF application, any kind of .NET application, and you can install those NuGet packages for SignalR as well. I'm having a fun day of slow NuGet installs, and I'm not sure exactly what's going on with that, but it looks like it's getting really close to being done. So as soon as I do that, then I will go in and install the next. I think the problem was I had App Insights set up to automatically install. Bad job, John. So I think I can do this while it's doing that. We'll see if I can break everything. So I'm going to go in and say, look in online, and I'm selected to NuGet.org, and I'll say Microsoft.ASP.NET, because I've been listening to Brady say it a few times, and then SignalR, right? So that is right up here. That's my search, typing that in. And when I hit enter, then that is going to go and grab those different packages. So I'm looking, how did I do this wrong? Microsoft, there it is, ASP.NET SignalR. And so I find that top one on the list. One important thing to notice is, as you're installing these, this is distributed by Microsoft. It's open source, but it's distributed by Microsoft. So this is important if you're installing these packages. I look for who the creator is, and I also look at the download count. And that's kind of going to help you make sure if somebody else creates another package called SignalR, this is going to make sure you're actually grabbing the right one, right? So then I say install, and it's going to go, and part of the fun of what NuGet does for you is it handles dependencies. So as it's grabbing these, the Microsoft ASP.NET SignalR package depends on this SignalR.js and SignalR.systemweb. So one of the great things of what SignalR does for you is it grabs these missing dependencies for you as well. So it's going out and grabbing those. This is a great time where NuGet is helping me to speak more slowly. I will speak at the speed of our network right now.
Nice.
So it's going out and it's making sure that I've got everything installed. Now, here's a cool thing also, just if to know about NuGet is it's saying, do you have jQuery greater than 1.6.4? And I should already have that installed, I believe, although my memory's hazy, but in MVC4, I forget which version of, no, I think it was 1.5 point something that shipped with MVC4. So it's also going out and grabbing that version of jQuery as well. So it's going to go ahead and grab those. And really, it's a little bit anticlimactic. By the end of this, we'll have MVC, and it also drops a README into my application. Yeah. And the README then is set up so that it'll, oops, all right. Let's see about that.
That's weird.
Yeah. Now, are things installing quickly for you, or
like blistering?
Blistering?
Yeah,
all right. So I must have offended Barry, and I think he's done something to my computer. So it's going out and grabbing this. So it got, there it is. Now it's fast. All right. So I accept the license.
So you called him out.
Yeah, there it is. He undid the little glitch.
Yeah,
right?
He unchecked the box, apparently.
So that first step is getting the packages, and the second step is installing those into my application. And so, normally I would expect this would take 30 seconds or less, right? So, but it goes in, and the cool things it's doing, it's downloading the assemblies and the JavaScript files. It is adding references to my application. So it's automatically pointing references to those NuGet packages binaries that it's downloaded. And then it's also updating, it's adding a README file that's going to tell me, here's how you create your first hub.
Yeah.
So it's not going to, and I kind of like this. I don't like some of the, some NuGet packages will go in and they'll insert a bunch of code into my application, and I don't necessarily like them to do that. I'd rather have them say, here's what to do next, right?
Yeah,
so here it's saying, go and basically create a class called startup and drop this code into it. And that's all I need to do.
Yeah, that's it. That's the own startup guy.
Okay, so again, to recap what we showed there is any application, but especially an existing web application, I right-click, I say Manage NuGet Packages. I go in here and I look online and I look for Microsoft.ASP.NET.SignalR, and I search, and it's going to find that one. Here I've got them installed, and it's automatically going to pull in all the other dependencies for me.
That's exactly right.
I think that's as complicated as that demo gets.
Yeah.
All right.
That's what happens when you have network problems.
Right.
Doing a quick little NuGet demo.
Exactly.
That's kind of funny. Cool.
Okay.
That's awesome stuff. All right. Well, I guess back to me.
Yep.
Real quickly, pull up the section slide here. There's something different.
No.
No?
About the section side? I'm not sure.
You're not sure?
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll keep going. It's freaking me out. Just something odd. Anyway. Using SignalR with AngularJS. This is something that I walked over to Damien's desk at one point. I said, hey, I have this demo that I really want to do. We're making a big investment in AngularJS in the team, and I want to kind of show off how to use SignalR with AngularJS. And Damien directed me to a great blog post. I don't think I have a link to it directly in the deck, but if I don't, we can get that up here in a second. John can pull that up. But what I want to do is I want to kind of walk through some of the points of that blog post. Now, I'm kind of an Angular noob. I love it. I've had fun with it. It is my favorite of all the MVVM-ish JavaScript frameworks that I've used. Mm-hmm. But I'm not deft at it yet. I still kind of have to hunt and peck and ask John questions and things like that. I remember it was kind of like the day we got in a conversation. We used to work on the same team with a gentleman named Nathan Totten.
Yeah.
Nathan is an Ember guru. He's fantastic at Ember, and John and I were just not rocking Ember. So we had a conversation with Nathan, and Nathan kind of schooled us for a minute. And after the conversation was over, Nathan left, and I looked at John and I was like, "You got it?" John said, "Nope, not even close." So it took us a little while longer to kind of grok Ember, but I still haven't yet. I think you've gotten better.
I've gotten better at it. It is important. These front-end frameworks, you've got things like Knockout, which really is a binding library, and then you've got things like Ember and Angular, and then another popular one was Durandal, but Durandal is actually being folded into Angular.
Nice.
So Ember and Angular are full client-side frameworks. So they handle view logic, they're MVC in your browser, they handle state, and they handle inversion of control, dependency injection. There's a lot to them. So I found, it's relatively easy. If you follow like a walkthrough, you can get an Angular application going relatively quick.
Yep.
But there's a lot to learning how to do it in a professional way. And so I'll do something and I'll say, oh, I did this. And someone will say, oh, you really shouldn't use HTTP service. You should use a resource. And then I go through and rework everything and they say, oh, you really should be, using controller as syntax. And okay. There's a lot to it.
Yeah.
Can we cut to my screen real quick, too? This is, I believe, that link that you were talking about. So,
that's the one.
So, great. So, this is a great thing in talking about, as I was just saying, you can get something to work with Angular, and then someone will tell you, nah, you really kind of want to do something different.
Yeah.
And this one, as you explained to me, this is good because this explains how you should handle things, especially with a SignalR singleton.
Exactly.
Okay.
And not only does this blog post kind of walk us through, and if you scroll out real quick,
Yep.
They're probably taking screenshots of that. You see how the name of that blog post is a better way of using ASP.NET and SignalR with AngularJS? What's interesting is that he actually kind of goes through the history of that blog post and how he kind of came up with it. Apparently it wasn't the first one. He did a couple of other things and then some other community members said, hey, you should think about this. So he actually kind of reworked it. And I'm going to be honest with you, the gentleman that wrote that blog post knows Angular way better than I do. So I'm not going to be able to speak too deeply about some of the whys and wherefores, but I would highly recommend that blog post. And one thing I do want to point out is that when I went over to Damien and I said, hey, you're a SignalR expert and an Angular expert, I'd like to kind of know how to how to do this. Damien showed me this article. So Mr. Karan, I do want to point out to you that Damien references your article on how to do Angular and SignalR. So well done, sir. Great job.
Okay, so blog post. Let's see it in action.
Yeah, let's see it in action. Okay, so back to the deck real quick. Just to kind of walk through real quickly what the different tenets of this process are, and again, read the guy's blog post, it's way better. Hubs are basically wrapped by Angular factories, which you inject into Angular controllers. Multiple controllers can make use of a single or multiple Angular factories. Those factories are created as singletons, and all controllers can use those guys. All right. So as that blog post points out, if you kind of use the root scope object, you can basically set up your SignalR hubs inside of these factories, and they get loaded up as singletons so that all your controllers can make use of them. That means you're not instantiating multiple hubs back to the client. You've only got the one, and then all your controllers for different pages or subviews can actually make use of everything. All right. So how would you actually do this? How would you use SignalR and AngularJS together? I've got a pretty simple demo. There was a question earlier on how to wire up SignalR so that I could know how many people I have hitting my site at any one time. Right. I think he may have missed the first demo. I think he may have missed the hit counter demo.
And fortunately, that code is available. We've got the code published. I published the link again. It's in the slides and it's also in the chat. So the hit counter is your answer.
Exactly. Hit counter is your answer. But if hit counter is too simple and you don't want to use the whole static int thing, I've got another method for you that you might want to take a look at. Okay, and this is my cheesy trace write demo. All right. So what I'm going to do is just kind of give you a high level as to what this is. I'm going to be creating a custom trace listener that will take messages that I send, using trace.writeLine or any variation. It's going to turn around and take that message and send it up to a SignalR hub from the server side. Now, the reason I'm going to show you this is twofold. I want you to see how to dial it in with Angular, but there's a really handy method inside of SignalR server-side stuff that you might want to use. If any of you out there are big Web API fans like myself, you can imagine that calling a Web API from a client, it would be a good way to then trigger something on the server side using SignalR to then send messages back out to all the other guys. So if you have a low-level device like a NetDuino that doesn't support things like SignalR because the .NET MF framework doesn't yet support SignalR, but you can make HTTP calls from a NetDuino. You could actually make Web API calls up to the server, have the Web API turn around and call a SignalR SignalR hub, and then all the other clients would see the magic. I did a demo like that at TechEd New Zealand last year, so if you want to take a look at that, I've actually got a .NET microcontroller that I'm sending up temperature and humidity data to a web API, and then I've got charts, and the charts actually activate because the SignalR hub is getting called from the server side. So I'm going to walk you through kind of how that works today. Now, first thing that I'll do is I want to open up, if I can find my actual, I've got some code somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where I put it. So I've got this trace filter here. So I've got one piece of code that I'm not exactly sure where I've put it. Which is kind of obnoxious.
Can you search for it?
I'm searching. Okay, there it is. There it is.
You're manually searching.
Yeah, I'm manually searching. I'm old, so I'm old school. Okay. So what I've got here is pretty simple. If you've ever written a trace listener before, you know it's pretty easy. You just inherit from trace listener. So I've got this SignalR trace listener guy, and I've got a method here, write to SignalR. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this global host guy real quick, and I want to type this out so you can actually see this actually happen. Remember, that's called trace hub. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do global host, and that's the SignalR global host. I'm going to hit dot, and you see that I've got configuration, which is going to give us access to all the configuration stuff, the connection manager, the dependency resolver, the hub pipeline, and all that good stuff. Now, of course, I cannot remember where I actually put this thing, so of course I'm going to have to backspace out here, but that's going to hang off the connection manager. So I'll do global host.connection manager, and then I'm going to go right here, and you'll see this handy method here called getHubContext. Now, I want to point that out because that's a super valuable method. Now, early on in my SignalR experiences, I was doing these odd things where I was trying to glue a web API to SignalR, and I had a SignalR dependency resolver and a web API dependency resolver wrapped around one Ninject or Unity container. Mm-hmm. And I basically had services set up as singletons so that I could feed messages back and forth from web API to SignalR. Don't do that. That's one of those gotchas with SignalR. If you start finding that you're adding all this, architecture and stuff and cruft around SignalR just so you can use SignalR, you might be doing it wrong, or you might not have found things like GitHub context. So that's kind of valuable. So I'm going to go ahead.
To be clear, that is GitHub context, not GitHub context.
Right, not GitHub context. That's funny. Oh yeah, picking on my southern accent. So you'll see here that I'm going to say GitHub context. I'm going to pass it TraceHub, and that's going to give us back TraceHub. Now, if I were to take a look at TraceHub real quick, you're going to see that I don't have anything in it. Okay, now this is one interesting little paradigm about SignalR coding. I don't have to put anything in my TraceHub at all, and it will still allow my clients to actually connect to one another. So I do want to point that out. Everything is still going to work.
That's a key thing. I've got a demo that I do. I'm not showing it today, but one of the hubs has nothing in there, and it's actually implemented in a completely different class. Mm-hmm. And all you need to do is declare that hub, and then you can work with it elsewhere.
Yeah, and that's sort of what I'm going to be doing today. So what you'll see is that I get back this trace hub. Now I'm getting back a trace hub on the server. Mm-hmm. The server's going to say, I know you've got this hub dialed into this web app. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to hand you a reference to that guy, and then you can make a call to it, and I'll figure out what to do. I'll call all the clients the way you know and love. So if I look here at write and write line, all I'm doing is I'm calling the write to SignalR method, which will then turn around and actually call my hub. Now, so I've got this trace listener right here, SignalR trace listener, and I believe I don't know if I do it in my web config or if I do it somewhere else. I guess I don't do it in web config, I actually do it in my startup. So if you look here, I've got this configure auth method here. Do I have that? Where did I actually put this code? I do F12 here. So that's definitely not it. So that's not the one that I'm looking for. But at some point in my code, I'm actually setting up a new trace listener. So I'm actually turning that trace listener on. Now, I've got an action filter over here in my filters guy. And I'm going to look in here, and what you'll see is that all I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be making a call to trace.writeLine from within this filter, and I'm going to be saying, the user just hit home index, or the user hit account index, et cetera, et cetera. So each time somebody actually hits a MVC method that I have decorated with this trace filter, it's just going to write out to the trace and tell me where I am. So if I open up home controller, you'll see that I'm just decorating it with that trace filter attribute right here. Not really doing a whole bunch of cruft. not doing a whole bunch of magic. And if I open up the home index view, you'll see just like before, we're kind of doing some SignalR stuff in here. But what I want to do is kind of walk through exactly what we're going to end up doing. And what I've got in my shared guy, in my layout file, is I've got some JavaScript at the very beginning. And I'm just going to new up my Angular module. I'm going to go ahead and do this. Now this line of code right here, I'm just adding a variable to my Angular context. Again, remember, I'm not a deep Angular guru. And this basically says whenever I say I'm looking for $, I'm looking for jQuery. So this is a way that you can kind of mix jQuery and Angular together. This is a trick for the ages. Again, I learned this from Ravi's blog post. So there's that. Now in my Angular factory code here, see, I'm passing in root scope, which is going to give me the entire page level scope. So not just the scope for one individual controller, but the scope for all the controllers that happen to be wired up to all the objects on the page at this time. So I'm just going to say this is going to be my factory, and in the factory's initialize method, this should look familiar. I'm going to new up an instance of my connection guy. I'm going to create a hub proxy. I'm going to add an event handler to the trace received method that I'm going to be getting from my code. And if I go back over here to my trace hub, what you'll see is that within this method, we're going to be calling that trace received event, if you will. That's that SignalR hub event from the write to SignalR method. And I'm going to be handling that event right here inside of my trace, or inside of my JavaScript code. And this is the method that I'm going to run. So this is my actual callback method. Now you'll see that what I'm doing is I'm calling the emit method from the root scope context. And I'm basically saying, I want you to fire the onTraceReceived event. And what I want you to pass it is the trace string that you got back from the SignalR hub. Mm-hmm. And then we're actually going to start that connection. So whenever the first call to the first controller is made inside of Angular that needs this factory, this is going to run, and that hub is going to be there, the connection is going to be there, and it'll be there for the lifetime of that root scope. So any other Angular controller that I happen to need to make a call out to that hub is going to be able to use this factory. So it's kind of a JavaScript abstraction on top of a real-time HTTP abstraction, if you will. All right, so there's all that stuff. Now I'm going to flip back over to my index.cshtml file, and you're going to see there's my apps controller, and you'll see that I'm passing in that SignalR service, and that SignalR service is the JavaScript that we looked at from my layout CSHTML page. I'm going to go ahead and bind a model real quickly, and then I'm going to say scope.parent.on, that's an event handler, onTraceReceived. Now this is the JavaScript event that I'm going to be emitting from within Angular on that root scope guy. Whenever that method runs, all I want you to do is just prepend a list with a new list item that basically shows that guy's that trace, and then I want you to just call the initialize method on that SignalR service, and it'll just wire up. So going back to that layout guy one more time, the idea is this is an Angular factory that I'm going to feed into an Angular controller in my pages over here. So there's my controller right there. When that factory initializes, I'm going to create a singleton connection object back to the server, and I'm going to create a hub proxy that will also be singleton along with this factory that I can pass from controller to controller in Angular. Inside of my Angular controller, I'm going to be handling an event that I am firing using the root scope emit method of the AngularJS library, and I'm going to be handling that inside this controller. So my factory is going to fire an event after it captures an event from my SignalR hub. The controller is going to handle that event, and it's going to do some work on the client. So I'll just go ahead and run this guy real quickly, and what you'll see is that home index should pop up. Of course that would happen. Having some weird build problems today. Clean solution here real quick. Do another rebuild, see if that catches it. This better work. I'll be rather annoyed. Weird. So I'm having shadow copying problems apparently. I don't know what's going on here. Let me try this. Let me do this real quickly.
All right.
Sorry everybody. A little bit sacrilege, but whatever. I'll do a rebuild here. Okay, there we go. See if this catches it. Not, we'll deploy it, run it in the cloud.
That's a funny switch. It's not working locally. Let's just put it up on the server.
There you go. Azure more than I own machines sometimes. So I'll just do Control N real quick, and you'll see that we already have one trace right here. See that the trace is actually popping up right here. Now if I do About, I go to Contact, About, you'll see as I'm clicking over in this browser, as each controller loads up, I'm going to do a trace write line, and since I've got a trace listener that's sending everything up to SignalR, and I've got this page over here watching that SignalR hub, every time I do something over here, it's just going to bubble that up and you're going to see that trace message. So to the audience member who earlier asked a question about how they could maybe dial in like an active user counter on their website, and you missed the hit counter demo, which is far easier than what we just showed you. You wouldn't want to dial in all this stuff unless you just want to learn how to use Angular and SignalR together. But if you want to do that, this is one way that you could do it. You just create a action filter every single time somebody hits one of your controllers, you increment it, and when the response is over, you decrement it. Who knows?
Well, and more realistic, you might want to use this to do real-time handle events. So you can get a real-time, say you want to watch, you've got a shopping site, or you've got an intranet, and you're curious how people are actually using the site. You want to see in real time. This is a great way to build a dashboard, or build real-time view of your logs and see exactly how many people are logging on, what kind of exceptions are they hitting, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, one of the early things that I saw out there, is it Elma? Is that what Elma?
E-L-M-A-H.
Right. E-L-M-A-H. Elma is like a good
error logging with modules and handlers.
Perfect.
That's what it says.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Somebody wrote a SignalR kind of a adapter or a plugin for Elma, and you could actually watch Elma in real time. So you could sit there and it would just kind of spin up and everything. And then some other folks had an idea kind of based on that, where they were actually watching mouse movements on, as people were looking at individual web pages, they were watching the mouse movements, and they could watch a control board with kind of an image of their site, and they could see how people were kind of moving their mouse around and clicking on stuff. So that's kind of neat, all these different uses for SignalR. So I kind of showed you kind of a silly way to do Angular and SignalR, kind of a hello world demo, if you will, but I think you have an even cooler demo.
I have two, actually.
Nice.
Two
demos.
So the first one that I want to show, this is one that my friend Nick Berardi built. And so this is available on GitHub. I've also got this code copied in. Nick's given me permission to present this demo. Nice. So I actually showed this at Build this year also during an Angular talk. Nice. But this was one of the first kind of cool samples I saw. He did a 4-part blog series explaining it, so consensus. And again, the code is directly in the application, and or in the source code for this series, and it's also got a README with both of these links in it. So I'll zoom in on this real quick just so you can see. So there's that one, and then if I go to the next one, this is his blog series on explaining what he did. So he's talking about how he built it. One cool thing that I like about the way that Nick put this together, if you're starting to write a lot of client-side code, you're doing SignalR code, you're doing Angular code, at that point, you're way beyond kind of what's easy to reason about and test and build with in a scripting perspective. And so he's using TypeScript. And I like the idea of using TypeScript and interfaces because you can get a real, as you're coding, you can get, of course, IntelliSense, but you can also, if you misspell a class name or a callback or whatever it is, you're going to know right when you build as opposed to going through and debugging it, right? So he's using that. So an example here, he's got, this is a planning poker. And the idea, if you've done this, is a kind of an agile way of choosing which features you're going to implement in a project. And so he's done things like creating, clients and servers and things. He's creating interfaces to them. And then all these, including the, even SignalR and the hub proxy, he's creating all these using interfaces. And then Visual Studio has TypeScript compilation built in. So if I change something on the left side and I save it, it automatically compiles out the JavaScript that you'll see here. So this is actually what you deploy, but it makes it a little easier to build, kind of testable, large amounts of code in JavaScript. So here's an example. This is actually running out at AzureWebsites.net. So consensus1000.azurewebsites.net. And I'm just going to, log in myself here. So John and Jay or I'll put in my real.
They figured it out.
So, and people can, if you would like to, contact me, you've got questions, I give my email address out for that reason, please do. I do my best to keep up. Okay, so here we'll call this MVA, and we can go in and start adding some features, right? So I'm logged in, and I can also, I'll shift this over here, and I'll create a new, actually I need to create an in-private instance so that I can log in again. So we'll log in again. And so this is an example. This is, part of the reason I like to show this is the idea that, okay, we showed games, and then we showed kind of very simple web things, and there's a nice place for something kind of in between, right? So here, this is an example of something you may just want to run on your intranet for your team to plan features for something. So, MVA course, let's say, let's plan lunch, right? So I'm going to add in lunch, and then when I do that, this one also, right? As I add that in, so people are joining, and then I can go in and I can make a card selection. And then, so Brady's picked 3, and I'm going to go in and say, no, I think this is more important, and I can pick 20. And so, so this is actually running live, and people can kind of go out and they can, make their selections. Thank you, Juan. So, so this is an example, again, of, another application that you could build. I love presenting with SignalR because people can just join in and start bidding on things, right? So, Mark, I'm sorry that you're not very interested in lunch, and I apologize. It's actually, I'm supposed to say meal break, right?
Meal break.
So,
okay.
Okay, so this is an example again of some source code. It's included with our application, so it's included with our source code. And thanks again, Nick. He's got a 4-part blog series explaining it and explaining how he used TypeScript.
Yeah.
One other example I want to point out is we've got a hands-on lab. This is building real-time web applications with SignalR. So if you go to the ASP.NET site and search for hands-on lab, it's going to be, right now it's the top hit, right? So building real-time web applications with SignalR. This is an in-depth one. You can download the WebCamp training kit, and it has all the code for it, the source code. This really walks you through at a kind of slow level. So if we're going too fast for you on some things, this might be helpful. But this actually works with an Angular application, and this is showing something where it's building up to showing real-time charts. Mm-hmm. And so as you're going through, it's updating all this information, and all that's working with SignalR. So those are my examples of, again, more Angular stuff and building with SignalR.
Nice, nice. Nice. Well, we've had... I'm going to have to get it together.
Yeah, I don't know. You seem a little off this session.
Well, they've figured it out.
I'm not sure what you're talking about. Let's keep moving.
Okay. They figured out that John lost a bet. It's kind of the deal. Okay, continuing. Enabling authorization with SignalR. Now, we've had a couple of comments out there. I'm actually really excited to see these comments coming in. We've had some comments from folks asking for more stuff on identity. We want to see more ASP.NET identity goodness. Maybe you should have a show with Pranav and Vittorio.
Absolutely.
That would be fantastic.
I'm glad people are asking for this. I've already recommended this to the MBA team. So I'm talking with both Pranav and Vittorio. So thank you for your suggestions. If you have other suggestions for other courses, send them in. This is really helpful. Right.
And if you have any suggestions for identity tooling in ASP.NET applications, please let myself and Pranav, who is Rusted, RUSTD, on Twitter.
Yep.
Or Vittorio know. At this point, I think we've sat in probably 5 hours of meetings over the last week or two, and we're kind of working on some new identity tooling with some different things. So I think we have a note on the screen.
Yeah, I'll figure it out.
Okay, that's cool. What we're doing is we're trying to come up with better ways to do the identity stuff. So if you have any ideas on that, please hit us up because we'd love to get some of your feedback. Ironically, the next segment of this module is actually related kind of to identity. There's going to be a little bit of crossover between SignalR and identity and how you would wire up identity in ASP.NET applications. So we're going to go back to the deck real quick, and I want to kind of walk you through that. So this part of the module is about enabling authorization with SignalR. Early on, there was no way to do this. You could secure your app, and then nobody could get to your app. But let's say you wanted to secure a SignalR hub so that only your authenticated users would actually get access to it. So let's say you're a stock trading company or something, and you have a marketing website that people would go to, and they log in and they can then maybe see their stocks. You would only want to show them the real-time updates if they're logged in and they actually have an account. And you'd probably actually only want to show them real-time updates for stock that they own. You wouldn't want to show stock that they don't own. That probably wouldn't do them any good. So that's kind of one example. We're not going to actually do that demo today. I'm going to do something a little bit simpler than that. But what I want to show you is how you can actually add authorization to your SignalR hub so that you can control access to them from within the client. So we're going to kind of walk through that. So just to kind of get started, I want to show you some code here on the PowerPoint, and then we're going to walk in and actually do this ourselves so you can see it actually work. So I want to allow authorized users only to my SignalR hub. Nice enough? It's really simple. It looks just like it does in MVC and some of the other stuff in ASP.NET. There's an authorize attribute. You can just put that over a method, and that'll just authorize users to that method. It'll say, hey, if you're not logged in, I am not going to say hello to you. So I just want to point out that, in this particular example, you're allowing access to that say hello method to authorize users only. If you're logged in, you can see it. That might not be good enough. Maybe you want to restrict access by role. So you want to say, I only want to show the stock ticker to my investors, and I might want to show other information to their admins. You can actually use the roles argument in the authorize attributes constructor, and you can provide it a list of roles. What if that's not granular enough and you actually want to get all the way down to the user level? I want to let John see the say hello message, but not Brady. Mm-hmm. That's how you do the roles. Now, in this guy, it's exactly the same way. Instead of passing it roles, you're going to pass it users. So in this case, I'm actually going to allow access to John and Brady, and we're not going to allow access to Barry because he keeps throwing up funny comments on the screen. So there's that. Just kidding, guy. So in this case, you're going to see how we're going to control access to individual users. Okay? Now, there's one other trick that you can do here, and that's I want to restrict inbound. So I only want to let John and Brady make calls to my SignalR hub, but as they make calls to the SignalR hub, I want to tell everybody that they've made those calls. And that's when you would actually put the require outgoing equals false at the class level. That one will only work at the class level. So I do want to point that out. You just put authorize up there and you just say require outgoing equals false. Now, anonymous users are going to see the results of our SignalR hub events getting bubbled up to the clients, but John and I are the only ones that can actually invoke methods on that hub to actually turn around and affect the connected users. So there's that. Now, do a quick little demo here requiring authorization to access hubs. Now I'm going to do the simplest, dumbest down version of this demo possible, just to kind of show you how to get started with it.
Now, we had one question real quick that I think fits in with what you're saying. What if someone wants to add access to somebody else? Add access to another person. Do they need to recompile the application? Or if you want to change your access at runtime?
So that's probably where you'd want to use roles. And just put people into the role appropriately.
Perfect.
Now, you will have to recompile your code there. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm kind of new to the authorize functionality. I've only used it a little bit. It's pretty new. It came out in 2.0, I believe.
Yeah, you're right. There are ways to abstract it.
Yeah.
So that it'll call against a user store or a role store, and so that you can abstract it so it would work at runtime.
Right. I think so.
Yeah.
And we'll take a look at the overloads when we dial it in the code real quick, and we'll see if there's actually something kind of obvious that stands out.
Great.
All right. So let me scroll down real quick. Now, what I've got is kind of a simple little MVC app here. And what you'll see is that I've opened up my startup.auth. And I'm just going to scroll down, and you'll see that I've got, the Microsoft one still turned off, Twitter still turned off, and the Facebook one still turned off. I just went ahead and enabled Google real quick, just to kind of show you that this will work with the other different auth providers. As long as the user's logged in, everything is going to be okay. I didn't use the other three because I didn't want to go through the process of creating an app. I just wanted to dial it in and show it very quickly. So I've got this hub here, and in this hub, it's just like the one that we showed in the slides. I've got the Hello Hub, and I've got a region hidden here. You'll see that I've got the authorized guy commented out. So we're going to let anybody see this. It's just going to dial up as soon as we load it up. And if I open up index real quick, you'll see that I've got some pretty simple JavaScript. Just creating a connection, creating a hub proxy, and whenever somebody says hello, I'm just going to alert hello to the user. I'm going to really quickly just do a Control F5 here, and it should just go ahead and pop up an alert and say hello. Because I've got authorization turned off. So see, there we go. Everything should be okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to log in here. You see that I've got this guy turned on. I'm going to log in as Google. It's going to bounce me over here real quick, and I'll give you guys my personal address. I'll tell you my professional address as well. It is bradyg@microsoft.com. I think that's my password. Now I have to do this. Pardon?
Ah, that's right.
Yeah, I have to do this. I am highly secure, so I have to look at my verification code. We'll probably do this later on from GitHub as well. Mm-hmm. I am using my beautiful Nokia.
Now, two-factor auth, for people that don't know, this is great because you just typed in a verification code that only lasts for a few seconds.
Right.
And so this is a great way where you can keep secure. You log into something with a password, and then it contacts you, and you need to put in a one-time password that expires as soon as you put it in.
Yeah, exactly.
Great way to keep more safe on the web.
It is indeed. It can be a little inconvenient because you have to do what I just had to do, especially when you're on stage. But hey, at least nobody's hacking me. So you'll see here that I'm actually logged in, and as I do a refresh, it's going to say hello, and you'll see that right up here, if I go up to this guy, you'll see that I am indeed logged in with my Google account. So there's that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to my Hello Hub. I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to require authorization. So I'm going to just do a real quick refresh on this guy. There we go. So you'll see that I'm still logged in. If I were to do a refresh one more time, see it's still working because I'm actually still logged in. Now if I go here and log off, when I hit refresh, you'll see that I'm not getting any pop-up. See that nothing's happening. That's because I've authorized access to that hub. So I have to be logged in. Again, if I log in as me one more time, the fact that I'm actually logged in means I'm actually going to see that SignalR hub actually light up for me. And then if I log out again, then it won't. So I do want to point out that using the authorized attribute, you have the ability to control access. And like John said, let's see if we have, we've only got the required outgoing, the roles, and the users. I'd have to look kind of deeply into the SignalR authorization page. Mm-hmm. There is actually a pretty good article out there on ASP.NET on authorization.
Right. Yep.
So I think I have that in the resource section of this deck. But if not, that's how you do it. So now, this is kind of going to be fun. I've always wanted to do this demo in a context like this. Okay, this is the mapping demo.
This is good.
This is the mapping demo, so this should be kind of fun. What better way to show off SignalR than to do a demo that we can all interact with? So if you're not ready, go ahead and get your browser open. We'll go ahead and get ready. And what we're kind of curious about today, some of you have said hello from Germany, hello from India, hello from Yucatan. We've gotten all kinds of hellos today.
Right.
And one thing I do want to point out is that what we're going to do is we want to see where you're coming from. So we want to get you to help us with this demo. What we're going to do is we're going to deploy a pretty simple app out to Azure, and really all it's going to do is it's going to show a map. And as you hit the site, it's gonna ask you to let us track your location. You can trust us. We're not doing anything nefarious. Just hit yes. So we're going to take your location, and we're actually going to send that back up the wire to a web API. And that's actually, we're kind of doing the same thing. We're turning around and calling GitHub context on the server and bubbling some stuff up to the client. And what's going to happen is every time you hit the site, we're going to drop a dot on a map, so we can actually see where people are coming from. Now, I've done this demo at TechEd and Build before, but it's kind of boring. because what ends up happening is you have to zoom way in on the map and you see a whole bunch of dots
They're all in
like in
place.
one little spot because everybody's there with me, so it's
Yep.
like a bunch of dots in one spot. So what we want to do is we want to do this demo with you guys out there. So in just a second, we're going to flip over to John's monitor if he can
Yep.
get it deployed, and we're going to dial that in. If you wanted to, we could look at the code for it, but it's not very deep SignalR. We're kind of just taking a lat long from the client and then bubbling that back up to the server, and then using the Bing Maps API to kind of plot everything. The one question I have is, I think my Bing Maps API key is still in that code.
It is.
It is. Okay.
I've
cool.
got it off screen.
Okay. Cool. Just
Don't you
making
worry.
sure. All right. Well, we'll flip to you now.
Great.
You want to go ahead?
Okay, so here is some of that code. Yeah, you're using the Bing Maps API. Again, just to point out, if you want to look at where this code is, if I go to aka.ms and zoom in, so these are two important things to know about. There's SignalR code is where this code is, and then there's also a SignalR book from MS Press.
Right.
So we've got that showing during the break, but a good thing to be aware of. Okay. All right, so let's hop back over here. And so here's this application. I want to deploy it. So a lot of people aren't familiar with how easy it is to deploy things. I can go in here and I can look at my existing things. Here's that consensus app we looked at earlier. Mm-hmm. I could go in and start, changing things around, edit the files and all that. So also, right from in here, I can go into my application. Let's go to my Solution Explorer. Let's see, I'll just get rid of that guy. Okay, so I'm going to right-click on this and publish. And I'm going to create a brand new site directly from in here. So actually, I need to go in and create a new one. So let's say existing. I'll say new. So this is going to be MVA map. Let's see if that works.
That worked.
MVA map, great. And so I'm going to, because we're on the West US, that's what I'm going to use, sorry. And
we could traffic manage it.
that we could. I'm not going to right now.
That would take a while.
Okay, and this requires no database. It's all kind of on the client side. So I'm hitting create, and this is creating that site for me. And what's cool is then I just kind of click through and hit publish. Yep. And so as soon as that goes through, then we'll see that going. All right, so we'll go next, then we'll just publish.
MVA-map.
And hopefully we don't get the thing where you hit it before it's live and we get any kind of problem, but we'll see.
I'll wait for your browser to open.
All right.
Now wait, everybody. Don't break our
Don't go yet. Don't go yet.
Wait for John's to load first.
When it comes up, it's hopefully going to, assuming all goes right, it's going to say, great. Okay, so it's going to say it wants to track my location. I'm going to say allow once. Of course, for whatever you're using, it may, your browser may ask you with some different kind of prompt. So now, if you go to this.
Oh, it's happening. Zoom out. Zoom out.
Right, okay, but so mva-map.azurewebsites.net. Everybody got that? This is very important. All right, so let's zoom on out, and we'll see what's happening around the world. This is
so cool.
Awesome.
Yes.
Wow, okay, great. Wow, we got New Zealand, we got Venezuela, that looks like, is that Colombia? Colombia, great. We got people across Europe. I'm going to leave this run for a second because this is really cool. And actually, I'll leave this as we finish up the session. If people can keep joining on, because this is really cool to see people around the world. And we were talking during the break. This is one of my favorite things about MVAs is that we get people from all around the world. It's so fun to connect with the entire development community. Got someone from India. We appreciate everyone staying up late at night as well.
Yes, we do. and in Australia, where it's tomorrow, we appreciate you traveling back in time to be with us.
Wow. So I'm going to continue leaving this running. We'll see who all joins in, and so we'll flip back to your slides, and then we'll pop back to this at the end, and we'll just see how much of the globe we've covered. Russia, Kazakhstan, and Mongolia, Japan. We're waiting to hear from you.
Yeah.
Africa too. I know there's people here from Africa.
And Greenland. There's got to be some developers in Greenland. Come on.
All right.
So that's our From Where Are You Watching demo. I tried to get the English right on that. Thanks to Mrs. Yarborough, my 11th grade English teacher. I wanted to make sure I'd satisfy her needs. So From Where Are You Watching, that's kind of showed us how to do this. I don't know if, it got me up on there. There we go. So really, this is kind of the code that's happening on the server side, just like you've seen before. We're actually using GitHub context right here. So I want to point out that we are indeed using the GitHub context guy, and we're just passing it the Latin lon that we got from the body of our post request right there. So we're actually feeding all that in. And here's actually a link. I've AKA'd this one as well. If you take a look right here, aka.ms whack SignalR-auth will take you to a pretty in-depth article on everything you want to know about doing SignalR auth. So for those of you out there who want to know how to dial this in from config or write your own provider or back up with a database or something like that, if you go to this URL, you can probably walk through all that and get a little bit deeper on the authorization side. Mm-hmm. So that's that. So that's it for the web section. So the next section will be SignalR on the client.
Yep.
And I think that's when we get into some pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, and so we've been talking here, everything's been in the browser. Mm-hmm. It's great. This is a very obvious application. You're talking HTTP in the browser. To be clear, you can add this on to existing apps. So you may have MVC with web APIs and all these other things. SignalR just folds right into that, right? So you don't have to pick and choose. Mm-hmm. And as we finish up, can we go back to my browser real quick? And so here's we got people all around the world. We got Hawaii, Philippines, Malaysia. Hello, everybody. Awesome. So we'll take a 10-minute break, and we'll come back and we'll talk about SignalR on the client.
Do you want me to leave this up during the break?
Yeah, we'll leave this up during the break, and we'll come back to it at the end.
Sounds good.
Or the next.
Did you tweet it?
I will.
Let's tweet it.